Back in 1984, I lived in a 130-year-old, 18-room furnished Victorian mansion in the rural part of South Carolina. It was owned by the same family for all those years, but hard times fell on the family, and they had to start renting out the place. The house was in disrepair and desperately needed some TLC. For example, there were still animal stalls in the basement from the back where they used to keep livestock to slaughter for the family meals. Also, the kitchen looked like it was last renovated in the 1970s. It had yellow linoleum floors, and the walls were also painted yellow. The appliances were likewise from that era. It probably hadn't been inspected by the county in many years. To say that it was outdated is a massive understatement. It consisted of 3 floors and a dark, creepy basement and attic, according to the owners. It has a deep, rich history. In fact, I was even told that Thomas Jefferson had slept in the same bed that I was sleeping in. Most of the furniture was from that era. It had a beautiful spiral staircase that led to the bedrooms on the 2nd floor. The bedroom door across the hall from my bedroom had a hinged bar lock on the outside. It also had knots in it that looked like a demonic face. Whenever you walked into that room in the middle of the summer, it felt like an icebox. The windows were painted shut and there were no fans or AC. It was weird as hell. I had a creepy vibe about this room, and I wouldn't go in there. One night when I had to go to the bathroom, I stepped out of the bedroom, and I heard footsteps behind me. I looked behind me and didn't see anyone. I freaked out and ran towards the bathroom terrified. At the same time, I heard footsteps running down the stairs from the attic towards me. I made it to the bathroom out of breath. There was no one to come to my aid. After hunkering down for I don't know how long, I finally worked up the courage to return to my bedroom for some much-needed rest. The next day, my girlfriend, Renee, came over to stay with me. She's very sensitive to spiritual vibes and wanted a tour of the house. As I walked her through the place, she pointed out spiritual hotspots in certain areas: the attic, the basement, and the room on the 2nd floor across from my room. She said the attic was where the servants used to reside, and she still could feel their presence. The basement was where the most intense anger came from. The room across from my bedroom was where an old woman had died years ago. One night when she was staying over, she went to the basement to do the laundry. She went to grab the laundry from the dryer, and she felt as if someone was watching her. She spun around and saw what looked like angry slaves from the Civil War era. They slowly crept toward her with retribution in their eyes. She panicked and ran upstairs to the bedroom and said to me, "I'm done with this place. I'm out of here." I said, "What happened?" She said, "I saw something in the basement. It looked like a shadow, but I can't be positive. It scared the shit out of me." I replied, "What the hell are you talking about? I'm not going back down there. If you want the laundry done, you go down there." I said, "Fine, I will," and I went downstairs. When I got to the basement, I put the laundry in the hamper and started carrying it up the stairs, when I felt something following behind me up the stairs. I turned around and saw something following me. It was gray and cloudy and getting closer. I ran up the stairs and into the bedroom. Renee asked me if I saw it. I said yes, I did. Suddenly, we heard a knock at the bedroom door. We froze in terror. We saw a fog-like substance seep under the door. She backed away screaming. I charged the door and threw it open, but there was nothing there. I yelled into the hallway, "Come and get me, you fucking pussy." Renee exclaimed, "What the fuck are you doing?" I told her that I was going to stand up to this bullshit. She grabbed a crucifix off the wall and took her place by my side. We waited in anxiety-filled anticipation for what was to come next. After waiting for what felt like hours, we went to bed. The next day I went to the attic to get some things I stashed there when I first moved in. As I climbed the stairs, I heard movement. I paused to listen closer, thinking it was probably a raccoon or some other small animal, but it sounded like someone walking around, almost pacing back and forth. I crept up the creaking steps to the attic door and listened. I could hear talking, but it wasn't English. It was almost a mumbling, but I tell it was a different language. I reached for the doorknob and it was ice cold. Abruptly, the doorknob turned on its own and flew open so hard it smashed into the wall. My natural reaction was to get into a defensive posture. I was ready to kick the intruder's ass. I looked around the huge multi-roomed loft. Dust was flying everywhere. It was obvious that no one had been up there in a while. Several pieces of furniture from a bygone era were covered in sheets. I located the boxes I was looking for, but they had been moved from where I had last put them. The dust on the floor showed that they had been slid to a different position. I looked under the sheets just to make sure there were no trespassers hidden under them. I found no one. Also, there were no footprints in the dust, human or animal. I scratched my head in bewilderment but shrugged it off. I grabbed my things and went back downstairs. I asked Renee if she had been in the attic. She said no. I told her what had happened, and she got a little freaked out. At that point, she stated that the house is haunted. She asked me if I knew the history of the house. I said I didn't think about it until now. I'll definitely have to ask the landlord about it when I deliver the next rent check later on. While we were watching Amazing Race in the living room, we heard some noises on the floor above us. It was the pitter-patter of little feet scampering back and forth. We looked at each other in horrified wonder. I jumped up and bounded up the stairs, 2 steps at a time. When I reached the landing, I saw small wet footprints going up and down the hallway, like that of a child. I tracked the footsteps back to the bathroom. When I got there, the water was running in the clawfoot tub. When I reached to turn the water off, I saw a small boy laying in the bottom of the tub, submerged in the water. His eyes were open, but staring up blankly. He was blue and badly bloated. I screamed, "Holy shit!" I stumbled backward and ran into the sink in horror, knocking several things to the floor. Renee heard the commotion and ran upstairs. When she got there, she asked, "What the hell happened? Are you okay?" All I could do was point to the bathtub with a shocked look on my face. She looked and saw the boy. Renee said she saw the boy on her initial tour of the house, thinking he was just a boy. She didn't say anything about him. She turned off the water, drained the tub, and the boy disappeared. As we made our way down the hallway back to the living room, the demonic-looking door across from our bedroom flew open with a crash. Startled, we ran towards the room. When we got to the doorway, there was a cold wind whipping around the room like a tornado. Furniture was getting thrown everywhere. In the middle of the room was an apparition of an old cackling hag. She was levitating and reaching out her long talon-like hands towards us, unexpectedly. The door slammed in our face. We looked at each other in utter horror. We simultaneously said nope and ran to the car, fearing for our lives. I immediately drove to the landlord's house to break the lease. When I explained why, he didn't act surprised and told me that he's always had a hard time keeping tenants longer than a month. I asked what's the story about the place. The landlord went on to say, with the house being so old, there have been many deaths inside it. He said the actual number is unknown, but there seem to be 4 main areas that the spirits inhabit. The basement was where slaves from the Civil War were imprisoned, beaten, and starved to death. In the attic, a chambermaid had died giving birth as a result of an unwanted pregnancy. In the bathroom, a boy had drowned after slipping in the tub and banging his head. And in the demonic door bedroom, a crazy grandmother was locked in the room because the family thought she was possessed. When a priest was brought in to do an exorcism, it went sideways and she died as a result. I asked the landlord why he didn't tell me about this in the first place. He said, "If I did, would you have signed the lease?" I said, "Of course not." He had no issue with giving me my security deposit back but kept the last month's rent I paid up front. He said it's going to take at least that long to get someone else to move in. From now on, I know there are going to be certain questions I ask every landlord before I sign a lease.